What if I told you that Ferrari, after one of the most complicated years in its recent history, could finally be seeing the light at the end of the tunnel? What if that light came not from technical improvements, but from the unstoppable will of one man, Lewis Hamilton? The most painful and revealing moment came in Brazil. A race that not only exposed the weaknesses of the SF25, but also triggered an internal crisis. Both drivers abandoned, victims of mistakes and decisions that can no longer be excused as race circumstances. Ferrari was evident. Not only was it not a champion team, it was not even reliable. But it was precisely that low point that seemed to light a different spark in Maranello. From the wall to the factory, the word that began to circulate was reinvention. And that's where Hamilton comes in. While many speculated about his frustration, his possible departure, or an emotional collapse similar to that of other failed signings, he chose the most difficult path, that of silent work. Hamilton didn't go on vacation. He did not take refuge in silence. He returned to the simulator. He returned to the meetings, to physical training. But above all, he spoke again, to observe, to ask questions that no one else asked. And slowly, he began to exert a real influence on the technical heart of Ferrari. Not with orders, with example. The most shocking thing is not that Hamilton is trying to change Ferrari. Ferrari is letting him do it. That is the real breaking point, and perhaps the key to what is to come. What distinguishes champions from the rest is not just speed or technique. It's the obsession. And that is precisely what has defined Lewis Hamilton since his arrival in Maranello. A pinpoint obsession with understanding, adapting, and transforming. After the earthquake in Brazil, Hamilton's attitude changed. What was once a respectful integration into the Ferrari ecosystem became an active taking of responsibility. The British driver, accustomed to highly optimized structures like Mercedes, understood that at Ferrari he needed to be more than a driver. It had to be a catalyst. The process began in the bowels of the team, the simulator. An artificial environment, yes, but one that has historically been a double-edged sword at Ferrari. The Maranello simulation model has a completely different dynamic than that of Mercedes. The response of the chassis, the logic of the engine maps, even the way the car communicates, its limits, all required relearning from scratch. And for a pilot who has developed his instincts over more than a decade with another system, that is equivalent to erasing his muscle memory. Ferrari knew it. That's why they designed a series of deliberately extreme, even unnatural configurations for him to force him to deprogram himself. Lewis accepted the challenge without objection. Day after day, he locked himself in the simulation room, working on improbable scenarios, varying every possible parameter to adapt to what SF25 demands. To this we must add the language barrier, the clash of internal cultures, and the difference in operating styles. Nothing was familiar. But Hamilton did not complain. Quite the opposite. It became part of the process. In parallel, his physical preparation also intensified. Not as a resistance exercise, but as a total recalibration process. I wanted to be prepared for every possible condition. Extreme heat, unexpected rain, slippery asphalt. Because I knew that the car was not going to compensate anything. He would have to do it all himself. Beyond the physical and technical, his transformation also occurred on the human level. He began meeting with departments that a star driver typically ignores. Strategy, telemetry, quality control. He asked, he gave his opinion, he challenged. But he did it with respect. Not as someone who imposes, but as someone who wants to build something from within. The key was in the moment after the summer break. It was there that his relationship with the engineers was consolidated. He was no longer the new one. He was no longer the driver who comes from Mercedes. He was one of the team. Their feedback began to be implemented directly in practice sessions and strategic decisions. He began to influence the setup not only for himself but also for Leclerc, pushing the team to find more collective solutions. Ferrari, little by little, is molding itself to Hamilton's DNA. And that, in an organization so deeply rooted in its traditions, is simply revolutionary. The SF25 is not a slow car. It's not a completely failed one either. It's even worse, it's a car full of potential that can't be used. And that makes him one of the biggest enigmas on the entire Formula One grid this year. But there is an interesting nuance in the middle of all this. Despite the technical chaos, there are traces of a car that wants to be fast. On circuits where tire management is crucial and traction is not as dominant, the SF25 has shown very solid race pace. In long stints, especially with medium or hard tires, its balance is more manageable. This suggests that the aerodynamic basis is not weak, but poorly harmonized with the mechanics and electronics. Added to this is an important philosophical change within the team. The SF25 was conceived with a continuous development philosophy, with interchangeable modules intended for progressive upgrades. The problem is that the first evolution packs did not deliver what was promised. But now, thanks to a technical re-evaluation led by Hamilton and some newly promoted engineers from the simulation department, new development directions more aligned with real-world driving habits and less with virtual projections have been prioritized. It is early to say that Ferrari has solved the puzzle, but it no longer seems like an indecipherable car. Thanks to this work of technical and mental surgery, the SF25 begins to show signs of life. It won't be the fastest, but it could finally be the most understood within the red garage. And that, in a season where the margin between success and ridicule is measured in tenths, can make the difference. The season is approaching its end. There are only 3 stops left on the calendar, and the next one has a symbolic, strategic, and emotional character like few others: the Las Vegas Grand Prix. A scenario where Formula One is transformed into a global spectacle, but where the real capacity of each team to adapt to extreme conditions is also tested. Urban layout, unstable weather, aggressive braking, and areas of very low grip. For Ferrari, this race is not just another opportunity to score points. It's a statement. It is the possibility of sending a strong message that the chaos at the beginning of the season has given way to a structure that is beginning to be understood, that suffers less, that responds more. And that with Hamilton as the new technical and emotional core of the project, the Scuderia can begin to think again as a winning team. The work in preparing for Las Vegas has been intense. The team has been carrying out specific simulations for this circuit for weeks. Hamilton has dedicated full days to studying the medium load zones, where the SF25 has shown some sensitivity, and has requested customized modifications to the front suspension setup, with the aim of improving the car's ability to generate stability under long braking, a critical point in the tight corners of this layout. In addition, Ferrari has been experimenting with an adjustable medium-high load aerodynamic package, designed for street circuits. It is not a radical solution, but it seeks to maximize efficiency on long straights without sacrificing traction in the most stuck areas. This solution was partly inspired by the approach that Mercedes used in Monaco in previous seasons, and which Hamilton knows very well. It is another indication of how the Britain's experience is reformulating the team's technical identity. But beyond the mechanical aspect, what is really at stake is the psychological factor. The team needs a performance that revitalizes the morale of the entire structure, from the pit wall to the last technician in Maranello. The podium is no longer just a competitive goal. It is a symbolic need. After the collapse in Brazil, Ferrari cannot afford to close the season without a redeeming moment. For Hamilton, this race also has special value. It is the opportunity to show that his signing for Ferrari was not just a public relations move, that he did not come to close his career in a living museum, but to light a new spark in the history of the most legendary team in motorsports. And for Leclerc, it is the challenge of redefining his place within a team that now revolves around a new leader, without losing his own ambition. His relationship with Hamilton has been respectful, but strained. They both want the same result, but only one can get there first. All of this converges in Las Vegas, a circuit where control is an illusion and the margin for error is almost non-existent, where every wall is closer than it seems, and every lost point is amplified under the spotlight. If Ferrari manages to not only survive but excel in this race, it will have earned the right to look at 2026 not as an unknown, but as a real opportunity to return to the top. The Las Vegas Grand Prix may be just another date on the calendar for many, but for Ferrari, it may be the beginning of the chapter they have been waiting to write for decades. Let me know in the comments what you think about that.